Stephanie, and I'm here to do one of my 4-of-a-kind videos. And this is for the series of videos where I talk about 4 books set in each state, and today I'm going to be doing Massachusetts. Now, Massachusetts so far is the oldest state I've ever done. It was one of the original 13 colonies. The 2 states I've done so far have been in the Midwest. They became states much later than Massachusetts. And just historically, so much stuff has happened there. So there's a lot to choose from. A lot of classics have been written in Massachusetts. Things like The House of Seven Gables, The Scarlet Letter, The Crucible, Civil Disobedience, and Walden. I've had a few people talk to me that live outside the US that are telling me that they don't have a ton of context for the states that I talk about. Like, obviously they consume American media and TV and movies, but when you just throw like West Virginia at them, they only have so much to go on. So I'm going to do this thing called 10-second stereotypes, where I'm just going to do kind of a word association thing with what I think of when I think of Massachusetts, and hope that that'll give you at least a little bit more context. Also, it's just fun. All right. So hit the clock. Boston, Beantown, Red Sox, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Mindy Kaling, the Boston Tea Party, the Boston Massacre, horrible Boston accents, the Salem witch trials, Steve Donahue, and I think that's time. So the 4 books I want to talk about today, when I picked them, I didn't realize they all have a very similar theme holding them together, and that is that they are all female-centric, but more specifically, they all are about sister relationships, which was not something that I had planned. I had kind of just gone through and picked books that I really enjoyed that were set in the state and looked through and realized they're all sister books. And also, you will see a definite outlier, like one of them is not like the other. So I'm going to be talking about the outlier first, and possibly the most well-known on this list. I'm talking about Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. I adore this book. This is a book I grew up with. This takes place in Concord, Massachusetts, and is about the 4 March sisters, and we get to see them grow up. There's a definite focus on Jo March. She is the 2nd oldest in her sisters and their relationship with their mother, Marmee, just a perfect mother. She is very patient with them. While her husband is away at war, she is running this household and keeping everything together and raising these girls. And a lot of people complain that it's too sweet. But I think when you are growing up, this is just the kind of story that I absolutely loved. This is just such a, I know this word gets thrown around BookTube all the time, but it really is just like this cozy, feel-good, happy book. There are great relationships. There are also a lot of complications in these sibling relationships, like when they marry your longtime crush. And just so many things happen within these relationships that I just absolutely adore. Jo is obviously the best March sister. I think we can all agree. So that's probably the most like sweet choice that I'm picking, and that's the outlier. And one that's just maybe a little less sweet, but only by a little bit, is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. So Practical Magic is about 2 sisters, Jillian and Sally, and they are raised by their kooky, witchy aunts in Massachusetts, and just the whole line of Owen's women for hundreds of years have been just outsiders in this town, and the people have suspicions about them and spread rumors. So both of the sisters vow that like as soon as they're grown up, the first thing they're gonna do is like get the heck out of there. And so they grow up, they go their separate ways. Sally gets married, and Jillian kind of runs off to just live her life. Well into their adulthood, there are circumstances that end up bringing them together again to work together toward a common goal. This is fairly different from the movie in a few ways, in that I think the movie mainly takes place in Massachusetts, where in the book I think they are only raised there and they go visit their aunts in Massachusetts, but a big part of the story is that they're trying to get out of there. And the relationship with Jillian and Sally, when they get back together, is this common goal that they're working towards, which I'm not going to tell you what it is, is bringing them back together, is repairing their strained relationship where they hadn't spoken for a few years. It does have that touch of sweetness where it's not very dark, even though they are witches and there is magic. I would not say this is really a dark book. I thought it was very cute and a lot of 90s nostalgia. That is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. The 3rd book I want to talk about, we start getting into territory that is a little darker. This is See What I Have Done by Sarah Schmidt. I also forgot to mention that Lizzie Borden is from Massachusetts. I could have mentioned that in my 10-second stereotypes, and I forgot. So I don't know if the legend of Lizzie Borden is as big outside of the US as it is here. Here there is like a nursery rhyme, which is Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks, and when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 1941. And so that is where the title comes from, See What I Have Done. And I know it is so morbid, but it is a very famous murder case because it was technically never solved. Lizzie Borden was on trial for murdering her dad and her stepmom with an axe, and it was a very bloody ordeal, but she was found not guilty. And a lot of people think it's because back then people just did not believe a woman to be capable of such things, since just really couldn't believe that she would do it. This story is written from a few perspectives. It's written from Lizzie's perspective, it is written from her older sister's perspective, their maid Bridget, and an outsider. I would not say it's horror, it's not a thriller, it's a very slow moving book about, I would say it's almost more like dark historical fiction. Like it's not fast paced, you're not like racing to the end to figure out who did it. It's more, I think when you read it, you're in the moment, and Sarah Schmidt just writes in a way that appeals to the senses and like the stickiness of the heat. I felt like when I was reading the book that I could feel myself there, and that the air was so humid and sticky, and I could smell like pears. But I would say tonally, if you're expecting something that's like real fast paced and a thriller, this is probably not it. I would say this is more on the same wavelength as like Burial Rites in speed and tone a little bit, but I really enjoyed it. I absolutely loved this book, of course, because it's on this list. Hello. And so that is See What I Have Done by Sarah Schmidt. And then the last book I'm going to talk about is the darkest of them all, and one of my favorites. And of course, this is Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This takes place in a Massachusetts suburb, and it is about two sisters, Mary and Marjorie. Marjorie is the older sister, she's 14, and she starts exhibiting very strange behavior to the point where her parents start to think that she might be possessed. So this takes place in the 2000s. They're having a lot of money problems, and just a lot of things lead to them making the decision that they will allow her exorcism to be televised as a reality show called The Possession. And so there's a few different points of view going on. We have a character that is looking back at this thing, and then we have a blogger called The Last Final Girl who is talking about the footage itself and doing like an episode by episode analysis of it. And I loved this book. I thought it dealt with so many things. It does have a very interesting, sister relationship where a lot of things are put into question. We get a lot of things from Mary's point of view where she's not sure what to think of her older sister. Like, is she possessed? Is she mentally ill? Can I trust what she's saying? Like, is she herself when she's talking to me? We also have a look at reality television, and especially something like this where there was exploitation involved, and how popular and how many views something like this gets because it is exploiting somebody. And the position that all of this put the family in, that put Marjorie in, was just absolutely fascinating and so well done. And it is, to this day, one of my favorite horror novels of all time. Like, I love it so much. I mean, I love all of the books on this list. That is why they're on this list. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Those are my 4 books set in Massachusetts. Let me know if you have other books that you like that are set in Massachusetts, or if you want to talk about these books, talk to me in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!